Hello, and welcome to another episode of Straight from the Training Ground. We're very happy to have our guest today with us, Rory O'Neill. You may know him from his YouTube channel, Coach Rory Soccer. Rory is a very avid coach, but also puts a lot of good things out there. So you haven't seen that, check him out on YouTube. A lot geared towards youth and coaching, but a lot of different aspects. Rory, thanks for joining us today to talk a little soccer.
Hey, Jason. No, I'm thrilled to be here, man.
So, Rory, before we get into your videos and kind of what you do through the YouTube space and all those kind of things, tell us first a little bit about just your general background in soccer.
So, yeah, I have a somewhat unique path, but I think the more that I talk to people, it might not be that unique. I didn't play any type of serious level soccer growing up. I actually pitched in college. I had a college scholarship to pitch. Tried to walk on to University of Michigan, where I went to school. But I pitched at a lower college before then in Michigan. But I got into it through a couple of different. I mean, I always loved soccer, but I got into coaching and specifically the kind of nuts and bolts of the game through my wife, who her whole family is from Argentina. And so the passion for the game is, it just nothing can really describe it. We watched the World Cup and we watched Messi watch the World Cup or win the World Cup last December. It was just unbelievable. But we were dating and then we got married and we had kids and I started coaching my kids, and that's kind of how my coaching journey started. Is realm, and then it's really gone to a level that I don't think I ever would have imagined with the YouTube page and where it's from there. So that's how I got started. My background is really wasn't in soccer, but I've been coaching year round now for about 12 years. And I've my kids, and now I coach several other teams. So that's kind of how I got started, and kind of how I got to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, you have a YouTube channel, and what was kind of your driving force? What kind of got you to start that? I'm always curious to just kind of hear what got you into that, and then also what do you try to what's your goal through that? What do you try to do with that?
So the YouTube channel really, I guess I have to take a step back first to just say, when you're going on this coaching journey, really no matter what your background is, you kind of trial and error things just for years sometimes before you start finding things that you really kind of are attracted to, that you really enjoy. And so one of the things that I really take a lot of pride in with my teams is the use of technology. So we'll do online sessions. Sometimes I'll send them 5-10 minute clips of how I might want to build out of the back of a particular week, stuff like that. And so the channel started mainly as just a place where I could put all this stuff, where if somebody wanted to go back and take a look at it, they could. And as my teams have gotten older, I mean, my U14s now, they're 13, 14 years old, very, very savvy with technology. So
Yeah.
what yeah, so I mean, we'll send them stuff, Friday nights before game. Hey, here's 15 minutes. This is different. Here's a set play we might want to run, stuff like that. But especially for the younger kids, they had only a certain attention span. So I had to start making some of the videos a little bit more YouTube like, with storytelling and things like that. And it kind of caught on, where I had coaches kind of emailing me. I mean, I've got contacts now internationally. And so that's kind of how that started. And I think in general, there's just kind of a big golf kind of hole in terms of coaching education right now, especially when it comes to U12 and under. I mean, if you go to YouTube or any real site and you try to look for drills, I mean, you can't run some of these practices with 9-year-olds that you can with 15-year-olds, And so I think that that's kind of where my niche was. I'm actually working on my first 11v11 video here that's going to come on the next couple of days. But my niche was really been youth and under, and trying to create videos on ways of having kids that age play the right way, and hopefully have fun while they're doing it.
Well, that's awesome. And another difference I think a lot of people don't understand is, like, I think it's a good point you brought up about research and coaching education. the numbers are different. So if you're a parent out there that, like you said, volunteers to start coaching your kid and they're 8 years old, they're not playing 11v11, so you have to adapt all those things. You have to obviously, focus, like in any sport, much more on the basics and technique and things like that. But I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, different ages play different amounts of people on the field. The field size is different. There's a lot of differences. So that's really cool. One of your videos that caught my attention, which kind of led me to you, which led us to this right now, was your unique experience, as you mentioned, with your family, um, your wife's family, being from Argentina. You have a video about, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it was the last time you went there, but recently. And I thought it was a great piece on you tried to explain the differences about youth soccer in not only in Argentina, but I think really in a lot of different countries, and how it compares to here. And I believe you took your own kids along. They went through the process a little bit as well. Tell us a little bit about that, and what were some of the biggest takeaways that you saw from visiting some teams and how they develop youth in other countries?
Yeah, we went to Argentina for 3 weeks, Thanksgiving, so a month or two ago, and we've been there several times. And my oldest son actually trained with the club down there the last time we went, but he was only 9 years old, and so it was a little bit of a different experience. Both of my boys train with a club called Belgrano in Cordoba, Argentina. Now, Belgrano's in the first division in the Argentine top league, and so it was a real experience, kind of looking at that and how they trained, but also just looking at the culture and the infrastructure around it. And then because of the channel, I decided to kind of video on things, kind of looking at comparing, contrasting. And I think in terms of like the big takeaways, I think the first for me is just how powerful the culture is. And I don't know if I just maybe didn't put as much emphasis on it before, but I think even in the video, I showed just some family parties where we got together, and people would just like, the ball is always there. I mean, this is not something that they do Tuesday, Thursdays, for an hour and a half, and then they have a game on Saturdays. I mean, this is just their life. There's always a ball there. There's always a game on. I mean, if there's any game on anywhere, I mean, it could be the fourth division in Argentine football, and I don't even know the teams, and sometimes they don't know the teams. It's on. There's conversations, tactical conversations on might be had at the dinner table, even among maybe even the women or people who aren't as interested. So that I think is really hard to emulate, because we talk a lot about, I think a lot of the narratives are the lack of a street culture game in this country. And, that's part of it in terms of the culture there, is that they're so immersed in it that it just becomes an everyday thing. And so that element, I think, is for me the biggest takeaway. In terms of the training sessions, and I don't mean this in any type of disrespectful way, I wasn't particularly impressed with the training sessions. They were just a lot more relaxed. And I've been a part of some really high level club, even MLS Next type of training sessions where, your coaching points are mapped out, everything is set up. I mean, this was like the coach got there. I mean, he was late a couple of days, and then they played. And I mean, I know one session, I think they played 6v6 for almost, I don't know, 70 minutes. I mean, they stopped here and there, and there was coaching points. Don't get me wrong. It was very unstructured. Whereas, here, especially as you get to higher level club, youth academy, I mean, things are usually very, very structured. And in fact, probably the better clubs have manifestos and teams doing the same thing, and technical directors, directing kind of how you're going to play or how you're going to train, or at least giving a lot of input. And things just kind of, they didn't seem to be very structured. And the other real big takeaway for me was that, I think another narrative that comes about, at least in America, is that we're not technical enough, like we're just not good enough on the ball comparatively to the other countries. I didn't necessarily think that. And I think I think both my sons are higher level players. If you're looking at what would be an average Argentine player to maybe an average American player, like somebody playing rec in Argentina, I'm sure is not going to be the same as a rec player here. But at the highest levels, it just that at least and again, maybe it was just my two sons. I didn't think there wasn't any real difference to me when I'm watching. The real differences were, one, just the use of their body and the physicality. I don't think we're any close to in this country on average. I mean, certainly there are, and I mean it. I don't mean it in any type of like foul way. I mean, they just knew how to use their body to manipulate space. And I don't know necessarily what that's from, if it's just from playing all the time, if it's from culturally, but they were very, very aggressive and very good with their body. And I don't know why maybe we're lacking that, but that was really the other thing too, is just that they were tactically much better. I mean, they would know where a pass is going to be before it got there. And I think, again, I think that is a little bit more on the cultural side, but from a technical standpoint, there wasn't a huge difference that I could tell.
Yeah, obviously a very cool experience. So thanks for sharing that. And that's pretty interesting too. I think that's a lot of times, what we hear in the soccer world that we're in, you and I as coaches, the lack of technical ability and things like that. So it's interesting to hear that. And I think, to your point, a lot of those things, just in my opinion, come a lot from just watching the game. Like you said, just being immersed in it. It's your culture. It's what you do. It's always on TV. And when you grow up like that, it's just a lot more familiar to you. But that's really cool. I appreciate that. And I just always think it's interesting to see and hear people's experiences and the differences, when they have the chance to see those kinds of things. And straight from the training ground here in our podcast, I'm very big on the same kind of thing, where I feel like we have a big gap in our country where we have club, and it's gotten to this level where there's a lot of club opportunities now in a lot of areas. It used to just be around a big city or in the suburbs, but I think there's a lot of club opportunities. But we also kind of don't have that option, like you said, that street soccer, that pickup game, those options for other areas. So in your opinion, not to put you on the spot or anything, but if there's one thing or two things that you could change within the culture, within kind of the youth soccer of our country right now, what would you like to see change, or how would you see that?
Yeah, one of the things I didn't even think to mention, which now that you bring up this question, in Argentina, the cost to play at an academy like that is essentially free. There are some mild charges when it comes to like training uniforms and things like that, but I was told straight up, if the kid's good enough, they'll figure it out. Like, they don't worry about it. And the other thing is that kids never get, well, I don't want to say never, but it's very unlikely that a good player would get missed. And it has to do with a couple of things. One, the clubs have a pretty extensive recruiting base, but not just that, like just fans. If you're in a remote city and there's somebody good, they will alert the club. I mean, they will say, hey, you should check this kid out. You should check that kid out. In fact, there was a kid at Belgrano who was training with my older son, who's a 2010. So they were U13s and, or 14s now. And he, kid there for like his third or fourth trial, who was like 6 hours away. And because the parents were like talking to some out in the parking lot. But I think, in terms of, just to bring it back around to the question you just asked, I mean, I think right now we pick out so many potential players, and we do it at the youngest ages. So, your parents are having to decide at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old whether they're going to spend $1,000, $1,500, and then I'm probably being low in many areas, on club soccer, because you and I both know this, coaching at a fairly high level in the youth club game. If you're not in at least upper level, EDP, ECNL, MLS Next club, by the time you're, 12, maybe it's even less, to be honest. I'm probably being nice. You're not going to develop into a college player, a pro player. It's not going to happen. So you could say what you want, and I think we have some fantastic recreational programs in the country. I actually know several of them that do a great job at a low cost, but you're not getting, the level of coaching, training, you're just not getting that to promote competitive. So from my standpoint, I think we price out so many families, especially the low income families at 9 years old. And so when we get to 15, 16, we have a very limited pool. And that pool, unfortunately has been self-selected to be families who can pay. And that's unfortunate. And I think if I were to change one thing, yes, I don't mean to keep getting around to the question that you asked. If I were to change one thing, it would, if I were to change one thing, it would be access. And I think you could got a couple different ways, because we're really not going to get away from pay to play, I don't think. So the way around pay to play is you don't have to reinvent anything. You just have to look at how the rest of the world pays for soccer. So they do it through a couple different ways. One, they do it through, training compensation and solidarity payments. So for example, if you train a player from any age from age 12 to age 23, and you're a youth club, you get a percentage of a transfer fee, or you can sell that player outright. So the example probably in the last year or so is Jude Bellingham. I mean, he started at Birmingham City, which is a fairly big club, but it's small compared to the other clubs in England.
It's not Real
he sold
Madrid.
to Dortmund. No, right. But I mean, it's not my local club here in the States. But just to give viewers a little bit of just a comparison, an example. So he was trained at Birmingham City till he was 17, so for 5 years. Sold to Dortmund at 17. I don't remember the fee, but it was a good fee, millions of dollars. He then was sold to Real Madrid for $100-something million. So because of the solidarity payments and training compensation, Birmingham City got $6 million for that transfer. That paid entire youth club for 10 years. So nobody at Birmingham City is going to have to pay anything for 10 years, or, I don't know how they exactly run their organization, but so I think, and I do think some of that is changing, but clearly that's something that we could try here, that we could at least, if you're U.S. Soccer, you could say, hey, we're going to implement some system. It doesn't have to be whatever the European system is or the rest of the world, but that's one way. And the other way to supplement income or to pay for things is, you have a first team. 99% clubs in the country don't have a first team. So that's problematic for a couple of different reasons. One, your incentive your incentives aren't to develop players for your first team. Your incentives are to keep customers, and I don't grudge anybody for making money. I don't, the clubs are doing what the system is set up to do. So,
I agree.
That's one. So that's one thing. But if you have a first team, one, you're developing that player for your own first team or to sell them off. Unfortunately, the only way to get to having first teams everywhere is promotion relegation. So that would be, if I was the king of U.S. Soccer, those are some things I would do.
No, I love it. I love having that discussion, and I think you bring up some great points. I think the solidarity thing tends to come up quite a lot, and I think that's a great point. And I do think, like you said, I do think there's not necessarily on the Jude Bellingham level, but there's possibilities now with MLS and more MLS teams and more teams coming along, USL teams, what have you. I think that's possible to help alleviate some of that. But I also thought I really like the fact of what you brought up of having a first team, because I think a lot of people never talk about that. I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be, in my opinion, an MLS team. It could be a semi-professional level team, some kind of a team. And even if they have that team, it could draw a little bit of money. It may not be, we're not talking your own stadium necessarily and millions of dollars, but that's a great point. I thought a lot of people had not brought that up. So I think that's a great point. So, Rory, we really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today. And again, that's his YouTube channel is Coach Rory Soccer on YouTube. So check him out. He's built a great following. Whether you're a coach or not, whether you just like soccer, check him out on YouTube, help him continue to grow his page or his YouTube channel. And we appreciate everything, Rory, all your insight. Keep up the great work, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And until next time, straight from the training ground.
Visit our partners at Uno Zero, where they make classic leather football boots. Check out our friends at Duktig Brand FC for all of your coaching needs, notebooks, and more. Visit our friends at TractionSocks.com for your grip socks.